the example you give of people not being able to understand a different side, another sort of BBC product is Emily Maitlis. Yeah. She's got her newsagents podcast, and she just had Rupert Lowe on. And, you know, she just...
Well, that was outrageous, if you ask me.
What happened there?
She basically said to him that, I'm not quoting absolutely, but pretty close, I think that you're a racist, if I remember correctly. They were talking about the so-called grooming gangs, which there is a better word for. And she said that he concentrated only on Pakistani Muslim gangs because he was a racist, when there were more gangs which were not Pakistani and Muslim doing this in the UK. And now he didn't push back with a very good answer, but that can happen to anyone in an interview where they're under heat. The real reason, I suppose, is that proportionately, as a percentage of the Muslim Pakistani population in the UK, there are far more of those gangs than there are as a percentage in the non-Muslim Pakistani portion of our society. Either way, I think she gave this impression again that she came from the BBC. She was this veteran figurehead, this, you know, leading presenter at the BBC. And now she's sort of free to do what she likes on her podcast, where all these ex-BBC voices, actually, all three of them, are basically just, without any pretense, massively left-wing about every conversation and debate they have. Nothing wrong with being left-wing. Well, maybe there is. But I would say that it just shows that while they were at the BBC, they held it in. John Sopel actually said it in an interview with her now about Gary Lineker, that his social media, he would try and hold things in or put a question mark at the end of his more outrageous tweets to try and get himself off the hook. Emily Maitlis has done some amazing work. I mean, that Prince Andrew interview was amazing. I take my hat off to her. She is somebody that has the capability of being an excellent interviewer, an excellent journalist. That will go down in history as one of the greatest interviews done by a journalist.
You just have to sort of sit there. I'm not having a go, but I've done it on this side. That's all I do. I mean, I didn't get the opportunity to go and speak to Prince Andrew because I didn't have the license fee paid for state-sponsored channel popping me in a chair next to bloody Prince Andrew. You didn't get that opportunity either. But, once you were there, he just dug his own grave.
I'll say I think she did a good job. I think she pushed back where she needed. She probed and tested.
Sure.
But compare that to what she does now on that podcast, which is just sort of reactionary left-wing stuff. And it's not that I object to her having those opinions. I don't really care what her opinion is. She's meant to be the interviewer or the presenter. She's meant to be drawing out from the person she's talking to what they've got to say and kind of exploring it, not accusing them of being a racist when there really wasn't the evidence, I think. So I do think that is maybe learnt at the BBC. Maybe she's a product of the BBC, but certainly since she's left the BBC and she's there, we're seeing it more. I guess that's a concerted decision. And she's like all of us. Like, I think, you know, you and I are no different. We are making our own product online. You with this podcast, I have my own podcast. I think that when we do that, we often choose to say exactly what we think. So I'm not totally against someone like Emily Maitlis saying exactly what she thinks. But where we say things that seem wrong or unhelpful or unfair, we all get grief for it. And that's part of the new landscape of online media.
You know what's completely mad, though? To call someone racist like that. Now, if I'm sat with someone who I completely disagree with, as has happened, not too often because they don't often come on the podcast, but some of them have. And let's say I thought somebody was a racist and I was maybe upset by that because I don't want to associate with a racist. I think I would say, are you a racist? Are you motivated? Is your logic...
That's just your polite man. I would do the same.
Well,
do you think some people might think that's racist? Or could you understand if somebody thought that was a racist opinion? Or have you ever considered that maybe the reason you're interested in the Muslim Pakistani gangs could be influenced by some kind of unknown bias on your part? There are many ways to ask that question, but I think that the sneering tone that Emily Maitlis took reflects the intention of that show.
Which is why I'm so quick to... I'm being facetious, but I am quite quick to denigrate her Prince Andrew thing, because I just think No, you don't. You have shown that you clearly don't have the subtlety, the empathy, the understanding of both sides to be a good interviewer. You had every advantage by being boosted by the BBC. You got given all of these contacts. You had all of these things, and yet still you're unable to sit there and go, "This is a person who a lot of people are following right now. Not just 1% of this, because maybe there is 1% of the country is racist, right? But a much higher percentage than that support Rupert Lowe, and even more for Farage and Reform. Maybe I should try and understand that." Nothing.
Well, that is the BBC all over. When there's an opinion they don't like, I say the overall tendency of the broadcaster seems not to like. They don't really, in my opinion, seem to want to interrogate it and understand it, whether it's Brexit or migration or climate change or anything, or Israel. I think there is a real resistance, and I've spoken with insiders at the BBC, especially Jewish insiders, who have told me what it's like to work there on this issue. And the Jewish issue, even Israel, may not be something that everybody cares about, but it's a useful indicator of something that is institutionally rotten inside the BBC, because there are Jews there who say that they feel they cannot give their opinions, even in private conversations with colleagues, because it will mark them out somehow as being wrong, evil, bad people. Now, I think that when a lot of Jewish people have a different opinion on Israel, it's not, as I said, just tribal. I think often Jewish people who many of us have family or friends in Israel. Many of us have connections to Israel that mean that we've probably seen and read more about what's going on from the ground there, whether it's in their own media or what have you. So I don't think you should just dismiss what those people have to say. I don't think that BBC colleagues or executives should make them feel uncomfortable saying that stuff. And yet that's what they've told me they feel. Yeah. And I definitely think even some who are very middle of the road, moderate people feel inhibited in private conversation, never mind in their actual work. And, if they can spot tons and tons of mistakes, small mistakes in BBC material, they will not be able to say so and even do their job well, because they're afraid of being called out as something that they're not. I mean, I remember one instance. I went on this program the BBC used to do where they got 4 journalists, external journalists, together around that big news desk, in the main studio, and they would discuss the world's news together. And we were talking about COVID, and they said that back then the news about Israel was that Israel was doing really well at vaccinating and beating the spike and whatever. And as we talked about that, they said to me, of course, Israel isn't giving vaccines to the Palestinians, and they're meant to do that under the Oslo Accords. And to which I actually just said, that's just wrong. Actually, the Oslo Accords give health autonomy to the Palestinian Authority. It's one of the things that was actually really the sort of precursors of trying to create the early version of a state for the Palestinians. So actually, it's literally factually incorrect. And the presenter sort of ummed and ahed and said, well, let's not get bogged down in the Oslo Accords, which he had brought up. So it's this old, don't confuse us with facts discussion. I think it's staggering. They later apologised, by the way. A viewer, not me, someone I don't know at all, complained, and they admitted that they were wrong. Not on air, not to me, but on some weird webpage tucked away somewhere, which nobody would see. But I think it's just all of these things. It just shows that probably there were people who had briefed that presenter who could have told him that's not true. But if they'd spoken out, they was like, you're a Jew.
That's true. Emily Maitlis, I think,
she is Jewish. I think
she is Jewish. Yeah. I wrote an article that sort of inadvertently called her a capo, which people, it's one of the sort of worst thing. Maybe like an Uncle Tom for a Jew. The concentration camps, the Jews who turned on the Jews, kind of thing. And a senior sort of Jewish journalist actually sort of tweeted me and messaged privately and said, you should probably move those 2 lines away from one another so as not to do that, because that is sort of a horrible thing to do. So I did. Well, again,
I'll say, it's not to have a go at you, but I avoid that word because, aside from it being quite a horrific allegation, I understand what one might use it for in that context. But the capos were also quite complex. Some of them were motivated by trying to save themselves or just do whatever they had to, which maybe is what one might think a Jewish journalist is doing when they are overly critical. But I think, again, like I'm saying, I'm not a psychologist at the best of times. I may be interested in what makes people tick, but especially people I don't know or don't meet, I can't possibly analyse whether Emily Maitlis thinks she's saving herself as a Jew by being critical of Israel. It seems,
no, she's
to my
part of
part,
she's an ideologue.
Well, I mean, I imagine that she's the product of having worked all those years in the BBC, as we're all the product of where we come from. The people that really impress me in life, and that's why I like your podcast, are what you're calling heretics. People who do come from a certain place, but they allow themselves to think outside it, and sometimes even to leave it. Now, people accuse me of not doing that because I'm Jewish and I have these opinions on Israel. But I don't think that that's why I have these opinions on Israel. It's probably why I know a lot about Israel in the first place and why I got involved in this niche. But in plenty of other areas, I hope I'm not guilty of that, which might mean I'm not guilty of it here either. I think people that are the product of a certain kind of education, a certain kind of early career history, who manage to move outside it are the most impressive people because they really indicate their interest in free thinking and coming up with something that feels true to them.